Okay, my name's Chris Muirhead and I am a partner at the Last Shop Standing Record Store, which is an independent record store in Plymouth. When we were turning the building or the rooms that you see here into a record store, which took months and months and months, we gathered information by putting out questionnaires mainly and did various amounts of research about what other new record stores were doing, what record stores had done and why they'd closed down. But in terms of marketing and promotion, it was mainly based around questionnaires. We gathered from hundreds and hundreds of different people, just a very short questionnaire of the sort of things they were interested in, whether they also wanted comic books and things like that, everything from like, you know, what they'd want from a website to whether they'd want a listening post, and gathered all that information together into a spreadsheet and sort of went from there really. Yeah, we use social media like Facebook and Twitter. Yeah, it would be a nonsense not to really these days. It's kind of permeated our society and it's essential really to be fairly savvy with things like that. We've tried things like Hootsuite, which is a kind of a cross-platform social media business thing that you can use, which we occasionally use, but now we're kind of on top of Twitter and Facebook to a degree that we're not ramming it down people's throats. We're not overly pushing it. It's more of a, you know, every day we post stuff, but it's not constant. If we stimulate a discussion and we stimulate a conversation, then that's fine. But we don't. It's not like post after post after post after post, because people soon start skipping by it. Yeah, I mean, in terms of everyday run of the shop, we use our online presence a lot. Again, Facebook, Twitter, etc. But we do things like we have flyers for shows. We have a general flyer, and that goes into people's bags. So if someone comes in and buys something, and we stick a flyer in it. Often we'll stick in zines and things, especially if zines have got articles with artists that we like or that we're stocking. You know, so those zines will go in the bag, so that kind of thing sort of gets it out there and gets people away from their screen as well. Sort of a zine's a really cool thing to have because it's physical, like a record. You know, they can look at it while they're listening to the record and see what else we're kind of putting out. In terms of the promotion, it would be, again, back to the questionnaire that we did initially. That questionnaire gave us quite a lot of information about what sort of record labels people knew about, what sort of music people were listening to, what sort of magazines they read, etc, etc. And yeah, once we kind of inputted all that information into a spreadsheet, we were able to see at a glance what like a general broad sense of our clientele was going to be interested in Plymouth. And I think that if we did that questionnaire again now, it would be vastly different. I think there's been a bit of a sea change over the last 18 months of people's assumptions and people's thoughts about what a record store should be. And I think in some part that's to do with what we have done, what the Drift has done, yeah, so I think that the data that we gathered initially, I'd be interested to do that again. We kind of look at what's available. It gets quite complicated because there's so many different distributors that we use. So there isn't just one place that has all of the records and you just order what you want. There's various different companies that are constantly advertising their stock to you. So you kind of look at what you're interested in, and we're getting quite reliant on labels. Like, we're quite loyal to some labels now because you can rely on certain labels, like Sacred Bones, for example. We'd probably buy Sacred Bones next release without even hearing it. If we weren't able to hear it, we would still buy it because we place a lot of faith in that label. So I think we use labels a lot and we use what people are talking about, but often it will be, we'll listen to the initial songs, or you know, say for example something gets leaked or some music gets put out there, or a live version of a new song or whatever. We'll listen to that, and if it sounds good, we'll stock it. It doesn't. We don't really use data as such. It's more what we think would work with our clientele. No, not really. I mean, it's more a case of how much you do, because people are getting advertised to constantly, and there's much more pernicious advertising going on constantly by people with far more resources than, say, ourselves or any small company really. So people are kind of, they're used to being advertised to on a large scale now, but they don't really necessarily want like a repetitive or in-your-face style of advertising from somewhere that they really want to think of as kind of a cool place to go. So I think if you overdo any one type of advertising, whether it be mailing lists, social media, flyering, postering, even word of mouth, you know, if you try and tell people to try and like force them to tell other people about what you've got going on, then it can be a bit sort of overbearing. The best point to make with this one is the time you spend, because say for example you've got an event in 6 months' time, there's no point in starting to advertise it now, but similarly if you've got an event in about a month's time, that's about perfect. To 6 weeks, that's about perfect amount of time, because people want to get excited about it and you want there to be a build up of interest and excitement about the event, but also you don't want it to get to the point where it tips over and it just becomes that event that everybody's now bored of. So the way we do it is kind of quite an old-fashioned way, postering, flyering, and then events on Facebook, which we then advertise via Twitter. We have a mailing list which we send out to, but we only send a mailing list out once a month because people get too much email, so we don't want to be another thing that people are just deleting before they open. So yeah, a mailing list will go out for an event or multiple events. Flyering, postering, building up word of mouth, and talking about the bands, talking about why you should go and watch these bands. So if it's online or whatever, discussing other live reviews or albums, because if people don't know who they are but they may like the band, they might not just not recognise the name of the band or the artist. So it's stirring up interest in that person before the event, so that they don't miss out. That's kind of the way you kind of pitch it. I mean, what I basically said before about like a sweet spot for an event is probably 6 to 4 weeks before the event, because there's always going to be other things going on around that event. But if it's not like a full festival, if it's just a one event happening in one venue, you want to basically build up interest in that, but not overload it, not overload people's internet feeds, or not bore people with it. So you basically want to be advertising online from sort of 6 weeks or so, advertising physically from say 4 weeks or so, with not much, you know, just putting out posters and maybe a little bit of flyering 4 weeks beforehand, making sure the posters are out 4 weeks beforehand, and then the last 2 weeks running up to the event, fly loads, build up a load of buzz online, and just get loads of people talking about it online, which is good. Blog about it if you can, and yeah, just build interest in it over the last couple of weeks, but make sure there's the initial amount of promotion gone in sort of a few weeks beforehand. So it's good to be organised. It's good to know who's going to be playing or what exactly the event's going to entail, so that you can have the posters and they're not going to be outdated a few weeks later. Again, it's just resources, really. We don't advertise online, so we wouldn't sort of say go to Amazon and go, oh, okay, let's get a banner ad on here and let's get a banner ad on C Tickets or whatever, and pay thousands of pounds to promote something that's coming up, because we don't have that kind of money. And that is the kind of thing that they certainly would do if it is a larger company. That isn't to say they wouldn't be innovative and think of clever ways of advertising. I can't think of any specific ones because it's generally just big, bombastic advertising. So they'd use, you know, if you're talking about companies like HMV, aren't you, and like the kind of the bigger stores, and maybe like, you know, on the live side of things, I mean, you'd use billboards, you'd use advertising, the traditional sense of advertising. So billboards, posters on bus stops, that sort of thing, and banner ads online with huge amounts of traffic going through websites. So they'll just pay to get advertised on there. Whereas we would be much more, it would be spread by word of mouth, really. See, we have, instead of having 40 or 50,000 friends on Facebook, we've got more like about 1,000. So that's a realistic number of people in the surrounding area who could talk to each other about what's going on. But again, it's a specific event going on here. It's not a full tour, which is going on around the whole country. It's just here.